If your hi-hats look like the ones in the thumbnail, then you actually need to make this quick adjustment that will make your hi-hat playing sound 10 times better immediately. This quick fix is easy, but often overlooked. And I'll show you why making this fix is crucial to your success on the drums. You can do this. Your hi-hat cymbals need to be more spaced than you think. Just because when you're playing open notes, maybe with them about right here, just because you're doing that doesn't mean that this needs to be their default open spacing. You need to be able to open them further, and then when you're playing, like when you're just riding on the open hats during a groove, then you use your foot to keep them about right here. Now there's no hard and fast rule, but for me it's usually about an inch and a quarter spacing between them, and you want to allow a little bit of angle from that bottom hat also. There are a lot of reasons to make sure you do this well, and I'm going to show that to you as we go through the video. The first reason is you want to be able to get a solid chick sound, left foot, closing the hats like that, especially if you were playing some jazz or Latin where that's a big driving part of it. In rock, maybe it's not as big of a deal, but if you're timekeeping with your left foot, maybe in the midst of a tom groove or something like that, you definitely want to have a strong chick. By the way, if you're new to left foot timekeeping, check out a previous video where we break that down and some great methods you can use for really freeing up your left foot. That's in the description. Notice how if I have the hi-hats only spaced right here, so they're barely apart, that's all we're getting as far as the chick sound goes. Really wimpy, not good, not cool, and that's even with some bottom hat angle. But as soon as we expand the spacing to about right here, it's like an inch and a quarter. There we go. It's like now we've actually got some motion. It's the same reason why if you're going to hit your snare hard, you're not going to start with your stick right here just above the head. You're going to start up here. Give yourself some room. Same is true with the hi-hats. Have that space to work with. But here's the other big reason. When you play an open note in the midst of a hi-hat groove, you don't want to just play a boring open note. You want to play something that sounds cool. You want to play something that sets you apart from a drum machine or from a robot. And you want to make your open note change its sound throughout its duration. There's something that one of my favorite drummers, Paul Mayberry, does, and he does this really well. And basically, you hit the hi-hats when they're just barely open like this. You can get that nice sizzle sound, so you hit them right there. But then as they do that, and as you go through the duration of that note in the groove, you open them further apart. And then you close them back for the next note. So basically, it might sound like this. And the way Paul Mayberry describes this, if you're playing something like that right before a backbeat, it begs for the backbeat. When you play a note like this, it's kind of like, it really leads into the backbeat, which makes this so musical and so cool. And so that's one of my favorite things about his playing. I'll link a video of him talking about this in the description below also. And so I'll break this down a little more for you. Basically at this point, I've shown you why the title states what it states and why the thumbnail says what it says. But we're not going to end the video now because I want to make sure you know how to play this kind of sucking sound and show you some cool instances of how you can use this. Because if you're following along with me and you're watching the video like at your drum set, by now you've gotten your hi-hats adjusted. You've opened up the spacing a little more. You've made sure you've got just a little bit of angle on the bottom hat. So you should be good to go. You're immediately sounding better. And I love things that will immediately make you sound a lot better. But now it's time to work some technique and a little bit of coordination and talk some cool musical stuff. So how do we do this sucking sound? How do we actually do this if you've never done it before? Well, number one, you have to have that big cymbal spacing to do it. So I'm gonna play some examples of this with this cymbal spacing. Then I'm gonna show you what happens if we don't have enough spacing. You'll hear a big difference. Now the big difference there is that second time I can only open the cymbals this far, and so in order to get an open note sound I literally have to lift my foot off the foot plate so that they're wide open when I hit them, and that creates what I would call a static open note. It's a static open note because that open note is the same the whole way through. We create the sound, that sound happens, and then we're done. But when we can open the hi-hats a little further, that means maybe not quite that far. I think there's a sweet spot. Yeah, it's about right here. And I can just feel it once I get it there. If you can hit it when they're just barely open, So this is where you strike. Then you gradually open it up, and so we're transforming the sound. Suddenly we have this really cool morphing sound instead of just a static sound that stays the same. Now this requires a lot of timing and intricacy, precision between your hands and your right and your left foot, because you have to be already loose, otherwise you just end up with. A lot of times when students will practice this the first time we work on this, it'll sound like, or maybe you'll hear a little bit of something, but it's just that timing issue. You've got to make sure you're already loosening the hats when you first hit them, so then you can open it up the rest of the way and then shut it back down right as you play that next note. So practice that slowly. It's not difficult. It does require some coordination. So like I mentioned earlier, if you're totally new to working your left foot, check out a previous video where we take a really cool approach to practicing grooves that works your left foot into them, and that'll really help accelerate your left foot independence, which helps a lot with this, because if you're playing this in the midst of a groove, you've got stuff to think about over here and with your right foot, and so you've also got to think about the left foot over here. So things can get a little bit crazy, but practice this slowly, just your hi-hat, just the hi-hat and the left foot. Work on coordinating that, getting a good clean sound. It all starts with having enough spacing. That's key. Now, I think I've probably explained to you pretty well why this is so cool and why this is something you want to work on, why it's worth practicing. But just to show you a little more, I'll play you just a couple of cool examples of how you might use this concept, basically using the ability to open your hats further in grooves, because there's so many ways you can use this in a song, and you can really make backbeats feel cool. You can make it feel like your groove and your timekeeping has some breathing to it, so it's not just boring and static. So, you know the method, you know the steps, you know what to do. Take this, run with it, go practice. You can do it. And hey, if you've enjoyed this video and if it's helped you out, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go. And also check out the free e-guide in the description also. It's called Your 3 Biggest Hi-Hat Problems Solved. 9 strategies for overcoming hi-hat frustration and left foot issues. And so if you're interested in working on your hi-hat skills and continuing to work on what we've started on today, go check out that PDF guide. It's yours totally free. Thanks everyone for watching. I will see you on the next video. Stay glamorous. No, not stay glamorous. Stay non-glamorous.